All right, today we're diving into something pretty intense. A profound and honestly an unsettling blueprint for transformation called Sovereign of the Soil. This is about an inverted journey, not up to the heavens, but deep down into the self.
Right out of the gate, we get hit with this gut punch of a premise. The whole idea is that constantly looking for validation from something outside of ourselves, some silent judge in the stars, is actually a deeply corrosive act. It poisons the here and now.
So let's be clear. This isn't about finding your bliss or some kind of quiet enlightenment. No, this is a guide to radical self-mastery. It's a protocol for becoming the one and only creator of your own values. So let's begin the descent.
First things first, we have to diagnose the problem. And the problem is a life lived in dependency, guided by a compass that only points away from you, away from the earth. The source material calls this the dream of the weary.
This brings us to our first archetype, the stargazer. And you know this person. Heck, we've all been this person. It's anyone who lives their life performing for an invisible audience, constantly looking up, hoping some silent judge in the sky will nod and say, "Yes, you are worthy."
And this slide really nails the contrast. On one side, you have the societal scripts, the polite smiles, the perfect Instagram life, all the routines we build just to feel like we're in control. And on the other side, primal honesty, the raw, unfiltered, deeply uncomfortable truth of just existing.
So, if you're stuck in that performance, how do you break free? Well, the philosophy here introduces a disruptive force, a catalyst for violent change. This is what it calls the arrival of the monster. Now, this isn't some hero coming to save the day. Think more like a jester, a wanderer, a holy fool. Its only job is to shatter that golden compass you're clutching so tightly, to break the very tools you use to look for approval outside yourself.
And this monster is smart. It doesn't just walk up and hit you with the truth. It uses a special method, a kind of psychological judo called the geometry of the grotesque. It uses dark humor, satire, and absurdity to sneak past your defenses and get to the parts of you that you keep buried. And this is absolutely crucial because think about it, right? If someone just walks up and tells you a hard, blunt truth about yourself, what's your first instinct? Your walls go straight up. The light just bounces off your armor. The grotesque, it bends the light so it can get into those dark corners. Okay, so once the monster gets through your defenses, that's when the real trial begins. And remember, we're not climbing towards some glorious peak here. We're going down, a descent into the abyss to confront everything you've refused to see. This is where the whole narrative gets flipped on its head. Real growth, it argues, isn't about achieving some societal ideal. It's this inverted journey, a conscious choice to move downward, through what the world would call failure, and into the strange, messy wilderness of your own psyche.
And who do you meet down there? Your primary antagonist, the verdant dragon. But here's the twist. It's not a monster you have to slay. It's a mirror. It is the not-self flesh, the embodiment of all the rot and hypocrisy that you and the society around you have tried so desperately to ignore.
10,000. That's not just some random number. It represents the self-inflicted hells, the sheer agony of the moment you suddenly see every single lie you've ever told yourself all at once, with perfect and terrifying clarity.
This pain comes from finally confronting our ignoble knowledge. And this is such a brilliant concept. It's that deep-down truth you already know, that a relationship is over, that a job is killing your soul, but you actively choose to ignore it. And worse, you build an entire life, a whole theology of comfort, just to avoid looking at it.
And that brings us to a really uncomfortable question, a question this whole philosophy forces you to ask yourself: what's your ignoble knowledge? What is that fundamental truth that you're building a world to avoid facing? But here's the thing. Facing that knowledge isn't the end, it's the beginning. It's the start of a profound transformation. This is the blueprint for forging a new self from the ashes of the old one. These are the 3 metamorphoses. First, you have to become the camel, strong enough to carry the crushing weight of reality without any comforting illusions. Then, you become the lion, with the power to roar no to old duties and destroy the hollow values you once served. And finally, the child, with the innocence and creative power to say yes and build entirely new values from scratch. And the engine driving all of this is what's called the will to power. Now, it's so important to get this right. This is not about dominating other people. It's an internal creative drive. It's an aggressive force for growth. Just think of that vine. It doesn't sit in the dark praying for rain. It fights its own way through the dirt to reach the light. So after you've gone through the descent, after the metamorphosis is complete, a totally new state of being emerges. You finally arrive at the destination of this inverted journey. You become a sovereign of the soil.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. The whole transformation is a reversal. You go from a beggar pleading with the stars to a sovereign who commands the ground beneath their feet. You stop looking for a silent judge, and you become your own creator. You trade cheap metaphysical comfort for the terrifying beauty, the ecstasy of the abyss.
And the kingdom of this new sovereign isn't some fantasy up in the clouds. It's right here. It's grounded in the dark soil, forged by the iron of real-life struggle. This person is faithful only to the earth, and they've earned the strength to carve their own destiny into stone, to become the lightning that rips through hollow heavens.
So what's the ultimate reward for this brutal, soul-shattering journey? Freedom. The simple, profound liberation that comes from no longer having to perform. That constant, exhausting act of just being a person in the world, it's finally over. The performance ends. The real self begins.
And really, the entire philosophy boils down to this one powerful statement. The idea of a perfect afterlife is a comfort for those too tired to deal with this life. True strength is found by embracing the grit, the struggle, and the undeniable reality of the earth.
And so we end on this final, haunting question. After you've descended into the abyss, confronted the dragon, and endured all that pain, how do you really know if what you found is a genuine truth, or if it's just the scar tissue left over from the fight? It's a question that reminds us that this journey, it's just as costly as it is profound.